So, what's the importance of substantive versus non-substantive language in a bill? And does that distinction between substantive and non-substantive proposed changes to California statutes matter? Well, it matters for the Assembly or the Senate Rules Committees when a bill is introduced. If it has substantive versus non-substantive language for purposes of referring that bill to a policy committee. And this is basically because neither rules committee will refer a bill to a policy committee if the bill makes a non-substantive change to existing law, i.e. it's a spot bill. Or if it makes a statement of legislative intent, then it's an intent bill. And neither of these types of measures, which are deemed non-substantive, get referred to a policy committee. So they remain with their respective rules committee until any substantive language is actually amended into the bill. Now, despite this simple sounding rule, sometimes whether a bill makes a substantive or a non-substantive change in existing law is not always clear. So some examples, for example, if a bill strikes the year of a sunset date, for example, is that substantive or non-substantive? And it's substantive because it would extend the life of that existing statute. But how about until January 1, 2034 instead of 2024, the director of the department may authorize certain payments? Well, that's also a substantive change in the law because it would extend the existing authorization for an additional 10 years. Another example could be the Attorney General shall provide investigative assistance. And then the bill would add, including but not limited to all investigative notes, reports, and related materials. That too is going to be substantive because it actually provides a definition of what is investigative assistance. How about a bill that repeals a code section? Yes, repeals of any existing code sections, whether it's a simple sentence or several code sections, are all considered substantive law changes. A bill is introduced that says it's the intent of the legislature to enact subsequent legislation for a Flood Protection General Obligation Bond Act. That is a non-substantive law change. It's an intent bill rather than a spot bill, but it merely states the intent of the legislature, so it would not make any substantive change in the law. If you add a definition for either a word or a phrase that is not currently in statute, is deemed to be a substantive law change because, again, you're adding an actual definition to existing law. Most spot bills or technical or non-substantive law changes, change an A to an an, or maybe add a comma, capitalize the letter A in an act, for example. Those really are true spot bills because they provide a non-substantive change in the law. What happens if the bill changes existing law from saying nothing in this section precludes a victim, and they change it to this section does not preclude a victim? Well, it's a non-substantive change. It basically reflects current bill drafting practices to state provisions in the active voice. A one-word change, adding the word used between new or remanufactured. That's a substantive law change because right now, new or remanufactured trailers qualify for a sales tax exemption in this example. And now you're adding used trailers as well. So that's a substantive law change. How about changing the single word of may to shall? It's definitely a substantive law change because that would change a statute from being permissive, the use of the word may, to shall, and therefore the statute is now becoming mandatory. So those are just a few examples of substantive versus non-substantive. There are many others that you can come across in bills, but those are just a sampling.